Folks, thank you very much for tuning in. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to co-host a webinar here with Modern Sales Pros. My name is Alex Roy. I am the Senior Manager of Sales Development. Here at Drift, I oversee our enterprise team as well as our EMEA SDRs. I am joined today by one of my shining stars on the team, my go-to, my right-hand man, Magnus Hermans, otherwise known in the chat here as Tom Selleck, which I think is probably the best compliment you could have got with all the effort you put in behind this mustache. With that being said, Magnus, love to hear a little bit about, your background and how long you've been here with Drift and maybe even just what you see before we even jump in as like your specialty, right? If you were an SDR specialist, what is your silver bullet there?
Cool. Yeah, I'm cracking up at the chat. I'm loving it. So I'm Magnus. I'm obviously a senior enterprise SDR here at Drift, and I'm coming up on a year here at Drift. And that entire time I've been working hand in hand with Alex, which is really cool. Fun fact: this is my first ever webinar. Hopefully not my last. We'll see how it goes. And that photo definitely should be updated because it does not look like me right now. But if my silver bullet for SDR, I'm obsessed with videos and sending those off. That's my bread and butter, if I had to say.
Love it. Love it. A little bit of a teaser for what is to come. Love to get some energy in the chat too. If you're an individual contributor, if you use video in order to get some communications out to your prospects, and then if you are overseeing a team, if you are making them or having them use video, and what successes you've got with that. I think even we need to use video more here at Drift, even though it is one of our products, right? But Drift is not the only platform that provides video. I think there's many tools out there that can do it, and it's definitely going to be one of the things that we talk about today. But that being said, like what we're going to be going over today is video. Right off the bat, Magnus took it right there. It's video for outreach and how you can leverage video in order to stand out a bit more amongst the plethora of emails that your prospects are likely getting. If you are an IC or a manager, it doesn't matter. You are getting your inbox flooded with email after email, same format, same ask at the end, looking for your time. How do you stand out as an individual contributor? And I know Magnus is going to speak a little bit to that in a little bit. We're also going to be talking about inbound chat, what the best practices look like for that. So if you're not utilizing anything on your website to capture those people while they're on their moment of highest intent, is like what we like to call it, then you may be seeing prospects slip through the cracks and relying on a catch-all, maybe like a contact us form, to make sure that you can somehow get in touch with these people. But we're going to talk about how chat can counter that. And then finally, the good old-fashioned cold call. So the not so cold call is what we're going to be calling it. I know Magnus is an absolute animal on the phones, and I'm going to be picking his brain on what he does to stand out in those first 20 to 30 seconds in order to get the runway for his pitch. So, Magnus, you ready to talk everything sales development here?
No, this is my life. Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Let's get going. So the first thing that we talked about today is video. And before I get into the play itself or have Magnus talk about how he's been successful over video, I want to open up with a bit of an analogy. I was told this analogy actually when I was applying for college way back, and I was going over my college essay, and I was told by an advisor to picture yourself as a line worker in a factory for ping pong balls. I know it's quite a strange profession to find yourself in, but if you're looking at a line of ping pong balls going by, white ping pong balls all the time, just doing quality assurance, and all of a sudden a pink one pops up, you are going to avert your eyes towards that ping pong ball. You're going to say, what is that? And you, as a prospector, if you will, one who is a sales development rep or a sales executive, you're going to want to try to become that ping pong ball. And one way to do that is to separate yourself from the plethora of emails that everybody is getting with text on the screen and maybe a cool GIF or GIF or whatever you'd like to call it, and jump off the page with a personalized thumbnail and a video that can not only talk to somebody about what they're going to be seeing when they engage with your product, but also walking through a visual on how it actually works in action. Like that is something that Magnus does tremendously, and that is something that will ultimately up your connect rates and it will up your engagement scores. So that being said, I'm going to flip it into the page and just read a little bit off the page here and say inbox are more crowded than ever, like we just said. Stand out with display, understanding which accounts are the most engaged in sending them a personalized video. So you're going to take anybody who's on your site, whether that's looking at that through an intent platform like Drift, when we talk about first party intent, who's been on your website, and furthermore, your third-party intent systems out there to say who's been looking for things in your space, and send these people a video. So Magnus, without diving too deep into it from the in the trenches perspective, talk to me first about when you decide to send a video to a prospect. Are you doing this with all your prospects or just a select few? And how do you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, I think if I did it with all my prospects, I would run out of time in the day very quickly. My personal thing is picking up on titles and obviously that intent factor. So understanding who's been on site, or just if there's an account in my book and I think, hey, these are great titles, I connect them on LinkedIn. Usually I'll wait and say if they accept my connection request, that's my go-to for a video to go right then and there. And that's just kind of that start factor for me of when to jump in with a video.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, we always run into a balance as either sales development managers or sales development representatives of the balance of personalization and quantity, right? So you raise a good point. If you were to send a video to every single person with multiple takes, maybe a car goes by in the background, which is okay. You want it to be a bit imperfect in the sense that it's not a very robotic Hollywood sketch. You want to be excited and engaging and have a good point to make, but it's still going to take forever, right? If you're doing that with every single prospect with 15 or 20 multiple takes at least a minute, but that brings me to my second point. What do these videos look like? And before talking about the content itself, how long are these videos typically? I know it could range, but give me an average.
Say it depends on, obviously, if I have a story to tell the prospect. If I think I understand their needs or I know what they've done before, it's going to be a longer one. And longer sounds long, but long means about 1 minute for me. 1 minute. And then if not, I'll send something 15 to 20 seconds. And like you said, these don't have to be perfect. I stumble on my words. Sometimes I mess up or say something and then have to retract. But those little imperfections on videos are kind of what make it human. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback on those. And taking it out from there, I've kind of asked my friends in marketing, hey, can I see what your LinkedIn inbox looks like? And it's just hordes of like text with 3 to 4 buzzwords in each one. And they just pretty much go through all of them, siphon through every single one. And then when a video pops up, usually that's a little different. So I can go send 100 text things, maybe get 3 replies, probably not the nicest ones either on those 3 sometimes. I can send 100 custom text messages and those just take so long, maybe get 5 replies, or I can spend 10 minutes, make 10 videos and have 5 good conversations right then and there because people just aren't used to seeing it. And in those videos, I think what I like to do and how I stand out from that noise is I like to start the video on their actual LinkedIn page. So it sounds like a weird kind of gimmicky way to do it, but it's personalized. So they see their face in the thumbnail of the video and are really enticed to click on it and check it out. Like, oh, like, why is this sales rep Magnus taking a video of my LinkedIn page? If someone did that to me, I'd certainly be curious. And then from there, just talk through, say like, hey, I saw you doing this and this, make it relevant. And then I personally like to do a quick 20-second demo and then quick ask like, hey, is this something that's relevant or interesting to you? And it does not take much time and the results are really great on video versus that kind of traditional text buzzwordy way to go about getting their attention.
Sure. Yeah. I think a couple key points that you raised there. First off, having their LinkedIn profile right there in the thumbnail. I mean, how personal can you get besides literally seeing your own face right there, or seeing your own name, right? I know I'd click that. I just want to at the very least know what on earth they're doing and what they're about to say about my profile. Are they going to tear it apart? Or are they going to say I need a new profile picture, which I mean, I probably do. But either way, it's a great way to get me to open a video personally. And then the second point that I really like there is you use the video to walk through, in Drift's case, how Drift would look on somebody's website. But that does not just have to be a Drift thing. That could be anybody's product or solution. You can show it implemented if it's part of a process on another website or latching onto one of your tools. You can walk them through exactly what that looks like. I personally am a visual learner through and through. You can tell me all day about a product, but until I see what it is that I'm solving for, that is key for me. And sometimes with certain sales processes, I won't be able to see something until I speak to a sales development representative, speak to an account executive, then maybe get the demo on the books. And at that point, I really got to be hoping that this is good, because if I haven't seen anything yet, likely I haven't learned, at least to the point in which the prospecting sales agent wants me to learn. I probably haven't grasped that concept, right? So using video to not only capture the attention of a prospect, but also using video to walk them through how your solution can impact a company from the moment it is implemented on their website or alongside their tools or a process for their reps is an incredible motion. So that being said, Magnus, I do want to talk quickly about the metrics behind this, right? So like, I know you may not have the statistics readily available, but like, what would you say if you had to guess on a LinkedIn message? Because this is what we're talking about right now. Your response rate is when you send a text, if you were to A/B test that off of a personalized video.
It'd be slim pickings off the text. And I think back to the point that a lot of companies solve similar issues. And I think the biggest thing that I see when I went through my friend's LinkedIn is the term like lead generation all the way through. And I've tried just sending text. I think when I started at Drift, that's what I started doing. And I'd say I'd probably get a 5% response rate because of how generic my messaging was. And then when I started sending videos, I'm seeing at least 1 in 3 people are responding, which is crazy to think that just like that, that's what, 30% lift in responses just like that. And the responses are more, it's a better conversation because they have that personal touch. They've seen my face, whether for the better or worse, as I've seen in this chat. And also they've seen kind of Drift or seen I point out the problem they solve or have that quick conversation. It's more personal versus text can sometimes read as impersonal and then can be hard to bridge that gap. But yeah, I'd say easy 30% lift just from sending videos versus text.
Excellent. And the other 70%, if you will, that may not be responding right away, you're still, if they're clicking on that video, at least with Drift and a lot of other video providers, are able to see how many times you watched that video, if you shared that video out with somebody, and using that context in order to re-engage the prospect. So I think that, definitely goes without saying is valuable insights that you get off of a simple motion of just creating a 30-second video, sending it over, right? It's like you're casting a wider net, as we always like to say, and you're becoming stickier, if you will. You got another touch point on them. They see your face now. They have opened the video. You got that receipt from that. You saw how much they, if they went back and watched a certain amount. And this could help guide conversations, even if you don't get that response. Say you catch them on the phone the next day. That's a great talking point. Hey, I saw you got a chance to look at the video. What did you think about it? What part was most impactful? Could you see, or not even could you see, what sort of effect would this solution have on your team's process today? How would you describe a X% lift in your own response rates, right? Like these are the things that we pitch at least. So thank you very much for going into such depth with that. I don't want to belabor the video point, but I think it's something that if you aren't doing it, mix it in. However you've got to do it, whichever tool you're using, hopefully Drift, we love that. But use it in your day-to-day process and use it on LinkedIn. It's a bit harder on email. I will say, if you haven't warmed up that inbox, you got to make sure that you're going through your the filters that are catch-alls and everything that may happen, but it's still super effective. And I think it's something that everybody's doing today. I think it's important to do it via LinkedIn, as it's a very quick and easy back and forth response. So I do think we do have a question here. Do you reference views? Sometimes feel the viewing metrics can be a bit creepy. Big Brother-esque. Curious to hear thoughts on that. I think it's a great point, right? I only reference like a one-time open, and for us, it's because like we can sell the idea of that visibility, right? I would not say, hey, I saw you open this at 9:32 a.m. on a Tuesday, because you're right, that does have that. But I'd be very vague in terms of like how you reference a view. If anything, I would use that data, and I would tell Magnus to use that data in order to augment his approach. Maybe pivot and go towards calling that person next, because in the back of your mind that interest had been piqued or repeat since being on our website. So Magnus, what do you do if you do see somebody? Because I think I gave like a little bit of a two-sided answer there, but what do you like to do if you see a view had been opened?
Yeah, I think back to that point, it can be pretty Big Brother-esque if I'm like, hey, I saw you like watch my video 5 times and watched 80% of it every time. Versus I like to use those views as an indicator for how I prospect them. So if I see they watched my video one time 100% through, I'll call them and maybe say, oh yeah, I'm the guy, I sent you a video on LinkedIn. Won't directly reference it, but kind of knowing that they did watch it is a nice way to enter that conversation. Or if they watched it 5 times or shared it out, I know I can go prospect into that account a little easier. And I think if they are watching it or in the process of watching it, it's okay to kind of reference it, be like, yeah, I saw my video. I would never get into the specifics of it, but I think it's a great indicator for how you go about prospecting then, and a great, obviously, directional pointer for you.
Great. Yeah. Directional pointers are great. Use that video and use that view as a compass as to creating more action in a particular way, rather than just going through whatever tasks you have to do that day. We don't have to be linear about how we approach our prospects. So that's awesome. Great question. All right, let's move it to the next play. What have we got here? We have the personalized content recommendation. This is something that I think may be a bit overlooked, especially on the sales development side. But let me read through this stat for you. It's estimated that more than 70% of a buyer's journey is completed before even talking to sales. Instead, buyers are accessing information on a self-serve basis by browsing your site, downloading content, and watching a webinar, etc., like we're doing today. Use this play to leverage content consumption to drive a sales conversation. In the sales development world, I think we're very binary in terms of what success looks like. But I believe it can be a bit of a spectrum until you get to where you need to be. The binary part that I'm referring to, and I am very guilty of this, when Magnus says I had a good conversation with somebody, my good conversation equals I got a meeting, right? That's not necessarily always true. And some prospects may need to be a bit more warmed up than others. They may be on your site for the first time in order to consume some content, to learn a bit more. I said I'm a visual learner, yet I expect my sales development reps to nail somebody on the first call, not knowing them from Adam, which can be a bit hypocritical. I think this play is important to run your own sales cycle, even as an SDR. And I know that sounds like sales cycle as an SDR. What does that even mean? There's a relationship cycle that goes on from the first time you reach out to somebody, or even the first time they're on your website, to landing them in that meeting. So, Magnus, we know that the best thing we love to see is we got a meeting booked and everything, but not everybody who goes to our site or everybody else's site is ready to meet immediately. In what cases have you seen sending somebody personalized content? I'm not saying just send me your demo, right? Like content that is actually relevant to what they're looking for. And how has that impacted potentially getting a meeting down the line for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great point about, I guess immediately in SDR world, all we're thinking about for a lot of us is meeting. And sometimes if we don't get it right away, we'll kind of give up on it. And I've seen that before, friends in other SDR orgs who are like that. And, you do got to think a little further ahead, like 4 months down the road, they could be ready to go. And if you dropped off, or for instance, I like using this play. If I talk to someone on the phone, have a great conversation, not a meeting, and I get the, let's talk in 6 months kind of play. What I'll like to do is kind of keep drift top of mind there. So when they are ready, because you don't know if it's going to be in 4 months, you don't know if it's going to be in 10 months, they have that opportunity of where I can send off like, hey, we got this new piece of content, this new event I thought you'd be interested in, kind of a softer ask to keep drift top of mind and reopen that conversation. So it's not hey, I know you said let's talk later, book a meeting with me now. It's more, hey, I think you'd like this. Let me know if you have any questions and we can open up that conversation. And a lot of times that will lead to a meeting because they see you as that kind of trusted advisor and not just, for lack of a better term, smell that commission breath on the SDR, and really kind of nurture them. And it sounds like more of a marketing play, but it is what it is. And it's a way that you can develop them until they're ready to talk to sales. And then that meeting feels so much better when you worked a little bit for it rather than just gave up on it.
Sure. Yeah. The commission breath can be very real. And especially when you're an SDR and you call somebody, now you sit in the seat of the person who was called and they're just going to be gunning for a meeting the entire time. It's not a pretty look, right? And it's something that we lose that consultative feel that we strive for as an SDR. We do not want to be pitching, hoping to guilt this person or, trick them into getting into a meeting. We want to be seen as somebody on the same side of the table as this prospect and truly looking to help. And this does mean having to send personalized content along their journey until they are comfortable, ready to buy. Now, there's a difference I want to make between being told, just send me some content and sending content and offering this up proactively. That the social leverage change there when you are able to offer up personalized content and be a point of a consultant almost to show them how we have helped people and how that can relate to them. It's a very different look at the end of that call. So understanding why somebody showed interest in the first place, engaging with them and calling them and popping up, and then engaging and then understanding and then recommending are our three steps that we always talk about here at Drift, right? So engaging them with a phone call or a chat or however, understanding why they're there, and then recommending the best next step. Sometimes that's not always a meeting, but that content, what I like to say is when somebody's asking for content or when you send content, it's almost like they're asking for a little bit of homework. Homework always comes with a due date. One tactic that I love to see the SDRs say is, sure, happy to send you this content. In fact, I have some pretty tailored content to your use case. What's to say that we review this on Friday at 10 a.m. to get your thoughts on this content and see how we can relate it back? That's a very soft way to ask that. But really what you're saying is you're asking me for some content, some homework to follow up on. And I'm going to expect you to not throw this homework in the trash, but rather to study it. And I'm going to ask you what the most impactful parts are. So that being said, do you have enough time between now and next Friday to read this 3-pager and have a conversation, a more informed conversation on the topic? So I'd say that's a great way to make sure you're not just getting ghosted through sending content. Magnus, can you give me like an example, whether, just like over time or if you have a personalized example, that's great. Just when sending content felt like you were going to get ghosted, but it actually like paid off for you and you got a meeting from it?
Yeah, I think to that original point, a lot of times, obviously on the phones, and if there's other SDRs or SDR managers listening to this, we know like just send me some content, send me an email. That's gone most of the time.
Like that sentence, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, goodbye. But yeah, exactly, a brush off. And what I like to think about when I'm kind of doing that is not only like, is this going to be tailored and relevant, but is this actually going to move the needle at all? Or do I think it's going to just end up in the spam? And I'll call that out when I call and be like, hey, a lot of times when I send these, like they end up in the spam or just gone. And to make sure I'm not just going to make something for you, kind of think about it as a give and take. And it helps put you kind of on that same level when you're on a call. which I like, and it's a more back and forth sort of conversation. But I think to the proactive point, I'll keep notes on prospects I've spoken to or had a chat conversation with, and just keep that on a kind of a sidebar. And then when a new piece of content or new event comes up, I'll just takes me a minute, take a peek, look at my quick notes and see, okay, they could find this useful for this, this, this. And then I reach out of the blue pretty much, or what may seem like, and say, hey, we just had this piece on this thing we were talking about, thought it'd be relevant. And that's gotten me lucky a couple times with some meetings that otherwise, may not have booked because I didn't have a personalized touch approach to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I think that proactive point is very important to drive home here. Like, if we're offering that, we're being looked at as that trusted advisor. We're being looked at somebody who isn't waiting to just get a yes out of you, but one more to say, hey, I'm going to provide you with this to help you along your journey. It's not luck, it's strategy. I love that. Yeah, we create our own luck a lot of times because we have to increase those conversions. However small they may look, those margin of returns will be the difference in that just hitting below quota that month or hitting it and exceeding it, So awesome. All right, let's keep it moving on to our next play and our next subcategory, which is within chat, right? I mentioned at the top of the call, chat is very important. And we think of chat a lot of times as when my cable goes out and I need to contact my provider to speak with a support representative. And it's a key integration. It's a key component of chat. But what we're talking about, especially with the 8 sales plays here, is how to utilize chat to get in touch with somebody at the moment of their highest intent when they are on your website, just like our highest intent for my own self is when I'm on Amazon looking for a particular product and I'm on the page right there. That's never going to be higher at that point. Up until this point, when a prospect reaches your website and starts clicking around, they were never at their higher point of intent, in their higher interest, right? So we're going to be talking about how chat can be leveraged and how Magnus can jump into a chat, even if he's in the middle of dialing on the day, when he sees somebody online, and have an educated conversation that could potentially create a meeting for him. So first things first, we're going to start with that intro, right? What does this look like when you do engage with somebody? So the blurb here, every missed opportunity to engage with a target account means you're another step away from a closed deal. So when your target account finally lands on your site, chat with them live and give them a red carpet experience. Magnus, what would you describe that red carpet experience to look like? You can even use a comparison of saying we could either meet them with a generic and go with this instead. But how do you describe that red carpet experience, either from your own personal experience jumping on a website or something that you try and provide for a prospect?
Yeah, I think just with chat, if there, especially in SDR world, if there's an opportunity to talk to a prospect, I'm taking it every single time. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'll jump in. But when we think about chat, like if I ask my parents about chat, they'll immediately say something like, "Hi, how can we help you today?" Or something like that. Just like, I X out, no, don't want it. Versus when I think about red carpet, it's kind of the show them you know them. Obviously, there's a line between personalization and relevance you have to draw for yourself. Not to say, hey, saw your dog's name is Lola, like stray away from that one, but more like, hey, maybe company name or name, and then something compelling there. So whether it's an email they came from or an event that's going on or something about their company, just kind of show them you know them, and then ask a question, open-ended. Not how can I help you today, but hey, saw you guys were doing this. What is XYZ, or what does that actually look like? Or just show that sort of little nugget of knowledge just to open up the conversation, especially when it's that top prospects. You want to be taking that shot, especially if they're on site right now. Like, I'm not cold calling them when they're driving their kid to school. I'm trying to chat them when they're on the website right then and there. So it's got to be a little more tailored.
Totally. What sort of opens do you like to go with? I know you said sometimes we'll say, hey, company name, saw this, but like any fun ones that you get to go and try and hook somebody on? Because there's no guarantee they're going to chat back, right? So you do need to get a little bit of a hook in there sometimes.
Yeah, I like to have fun with it. I've done, I had another rep tell me about this where it's like a genie emoji. It's like, I'm guessing this is, and then put the account name in, and then say as a question like, hey, if I'm right, like, is this still like, just ask a question from there. But
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's important to have fun with it,
Yeah.
especially just to kind of flex the chat a little bit, and then obviously show that you know who it is.
For sure. Luis had a question in here. What are some good openings if you do not know the company or person's info? And I don't even mean to jump in, but like one that I always saw that was good just to try and like differentiate yourself. Now with our chat, we have like a picture of ourselves, but that doesn't say like that I am definitely not an avatar. We can always match a picture, like literally calling out, hey there, human here, human over there. Anybody, like any human there? Or are you a robot? You know, something like that. To distinguish yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, like just to distinguish, hey, I'm not actually a bot. This is Magnus. I'm an SDR here at Drift, here to answer your questions. Like, keep it brief, but like, it just feels much better, at least from a personal standpoint, when I know there's a human on the line versus somebody who's going to be hitting me with a fake typing icon in an immediately prompted message. We all know what that looks like. So that's a really good question. And I'd say just try and make it as human as possible, because we do live in a world in an automation today where that can feel the opposite of that red carpet experience. So let's talk about like return visitors. What does like rolling the red carpet out for a return visitor look like, or a visitor who is being brought in by something you sent them?
Yeah, I think kind of that welcome back call out's important.
Sure.
But also I like to think about what did I send them? Like, what on earth did I send them that they're on the site right now? Let me check this out. And let's say it was a very specific, there's an email that I sent them that was kind of tailored, or let's say it's about their form fill. And I'll call it out and be like, hey, or saw you got my email about the form fill. Is that what brought you to site? Or just a little something to call it out. I'm not the best with openers in chat. I could be a little more creative, but I like to try and call out little things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great. One final question here regarding the red carpet. What do you do to combat the seasons of no reply, no matter what you're trying? So like, you're sending them a message and you know they're still on the site because we have the visibility to see that. And we're not going to be Big Brother-esque and say, hey, I know you're still there. But what sort of things do you do if your first attempt does not land?
Yeah, I'm just imagining sending them like, hey, John at 118th Broadway. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right? So like, how do you say, I know you're still here and I know you're still interested, without exactly calling that out?
I like to go back to the human part, like you said. Like, I'll write like, I promise I'm a human, or something like that in the chat, just try and get them. Or, I mean, if they're active, give them a call. You know where they're at. If chat isn't working, I'll call them. Hit or miss for sure, but
that's exactly like, I guess I wasn't trying to lead you to it, but like, use a different channel, right? We live in a world where our technology is paired with information everywhere. And if we know that this is a known contact on our site, you know, what better pattern interruption than to be called and say, you know, hey, I just happened to get a ping that somebody was on the site from your company. I don't know if it was you, but I figured, let me just go give somebody a call. You know, that way you're not coming off too creepy or anything like that. You can just say like, one of the luxuries of the technology that we use is that I do get pinged when people are engaging with our content. So I figured, what better time than to give you a call? Not sure if it was you, but do you have a second to have a conversation, right? Like, that could be good. Yeah, Aaron, I think it's a good point in the chat here. When you get, hey, human here, human there, it's this weird paradox of like, is it actually a human or is it not? Right. So I implore people who use chat to use humor, to try and do anything that utilize your fonts a little differently. You could potentially be a little less formal when writing. I know that's when speaking with enterprise old-fashioned companies, it may be a no-no, but I think chat is the place to do it. Would you not agree, Magnus? I think it creates more of an informal process, almost as if you were texting with your friend's parents or something like that.
I was actually going to say, I think Jackson wrote it. I've seen people actually misspell like a word just to prove that you're human, or if you write in all lowercase, just something that interrupts, like are slightly wrong, or just something that gives off the tinge of human. Like, would you really program a bot to say that? Well, you
Right.
usually tip it off. I don't know about the misspell thing. I feel like I'll do that normally, but
It's funny. It just perpetuates a paradox of like, like we did that to stress that we were human, but could we just design a bot? That's a story for another time, right? But I think any way that you can show that, and we talk about like, do it as if you were texting a friend's parents, like that level of formality, but not a rigidness to it. And I think that's just what really seems to ring true to our prospects when we do get responses. Like, you feel as though a credited source is speaking with you, but it still feels like a human, you know? So, Grammarly can only help so much. I love that. It's so true. I'm guilty of it. All right, let's move it along in the sake of time. I think this is a great discussion to be had. And I'm happy to, follow up with other people off the record to just chat through this, because no pun intended, but like to literally talk through this, because it's something that we're looking to perfect the formula around every day. Just because we're sitting up here as the experts on chat does not mean that the formula is 100% sound. So always love to chat about some new ideas. Let's go on to how you are bringing in your AE. Once you've done your beautiful work, Magnus, of qualifying somebody in, how do you use chat to actually tee up a meeting, right? Like, it sounds wild. Like, to me, when I first heard of this concept, like, I figured I'd still have to do some more qualification. And sometimes you can do that over chat, or you have to get over the phone. But if you have enough there and somebody's returning and they were just ready now, how do you bring in the AE using something like Drift particularly?
yeah, so I think kind of specifically, obviously within Drift, and I think some other areas as well, as in the chat, I can just pull them in and say, hey, my AE's name's Tony. I'd be like, Tony, jump in on this, pull them in, or if they're not there, literally drop their calendar if the prospect's ready to go. But I think on a background level, it's important to have good relationships with your AEs to understand how they operate, how they like to use chat, what means qualified in their books, like when are they going to want to jump in is an important one. So I'm not going to pass off an unqualified lead to my AE just for the sake of it. I want to make sure they're ready to go. And then usually I'll do that in chat because I know the prospect's still there. I really do not enjoy playing the chase follow-up game if I lose them. So I'll try and do it as soon as possible, loop the AE in, and if they're not there, drop their calendar. Pretty much book that meeting in chat when I can. But yeah, again, that kind of AE SDR lockstep and seeing eye to eye has been critical for me in terms of outbounding and working with them. That's been the recipe right there.
Yeah. What better thing as an AE to get a notification that your SDR has booked something already for you? The calendar invite has been sent, that all of this that we, even 5-6 years ago, had to automate, right? Also, what better way to take a step back than for Magnus, to come in from his 3-hour lunch and see he got a meeting? Not actually. Magnus has never done that, and he's an incredible worker. But even waking up in the morning, right, and seeing somebody from overseas that you normally wouldn't have had that at bat with, book some time for you, right? So like, we're looking to automate a lot of that, and that's just some of the innovations that we're doing regarding that sales development handoff phase. But like, Magnus, talk to me about like just to, even though we're going a little bit off the slide here, but like, what's it like, being able to log on in the morning and seeing a prospect booked with you that you probably wouldn't have even called at, say, 11 p.m. at night, your time?
Yeah, it's wild. I've worked in marketing companies in the past where that's just unheard of. And it's nice like getting like, hey, Drift confirmed, Drift qualified, we have a meeting for you. And yeah, especially the time zone things when it's 10 p.m., like no shot I'm going to be calling them at that point. No way.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah, and I think this happened the other day, actually. It was like 6 a.m. and this is going to sound like the most Boston story of all time, but I was at Dunkin' Donuts. It's like 20 degrees out. Of course, I'm buying iced coffee. And I get a ping on my phone, like CMO's in chat. And obviously CMO is one of our ICPs. And I'm chatting with her in chat. Also, I think she's in Europe, so it made sense for her, but I'm in line and holding up the entire line. I'm not ordering because I have an inbound lead. Like, I'm an SDR. This is what I do. They can wait. And I'm chatting. She asks a technical question. I'm like, uh-oh. And then right in the phone, kind of pulled my AE in. And then he jumped in and booked that meeting. Psychopath for also being up at 6 a.m. But because we were both in lockstep with that, I didn't need to kind of drop my phone, go run back to my laptop to go figure out how to have that conversation. I also would have lost my spot in line, which would have been brutal. But that was just crazy. And that was literally 2 weeks ago, which was a lot of fun.
Right. I mean, and just in time to get the iced coffee, right? Like you didn't even have to get out of line for it,
Yeah.
which is awesome. You may have held them up a little bit, but the fact that you were able to still get up in order by the time you've booked a meeting and your AE has confirmed that meeting, I mean, what a compelling story, right? So really love to see that. And, you know, the AE in this scenario happen to be up, but they don't have to be, right? Like you can still drop that calendar invite. They can confirm that whenever they log on. So I think like it's just awesome stuff. Like to your AE has the luxury now of saying, okay, like I know that Magnus did some qualification, our bot did some qualification, got a lot of those pre-disco questions out of the way, and we were able to book this thing with nobody having to break their daily flow, which I think is awesome. Like you were still able to get your coffee in time, and still able to get back without having to do anything that you couldn't do on an iPhone, which I know even today with like we use Salesforce and I can't do half the things that I need to do in Salesforce as a manager on my cell phone. But yet Magnus is able to book a meeting, confirm with his AE and the prospect online while having a live chat and have a scheduled meeting on the books. I think that's pretty phenomenal. So with that being said, we're going to move it on to our last piece, our last subcategory, which is the phone, which I saw Magnus's face light up because that's where he shines. He said video is his silver bullet. I personally seem to think that phone is where this guy crushes it, and I've seen it in person, and it's a beautiful thing. But let's talk about the phone and the not so cold call. How do you turn, Magnus, a cold call into something with like more of a warm topic to it, a more familiarity to it? And I think the first play that we're going to talk to right here is like using the chat. You may have just met this person over chat 30 seconds ago. They give you an in the weeds question or a technical question or one that would show a bit more buying intent than somebody who is a first-time visitor. How do you use that chat to then hop into a call? Besides the fact that, as we can see, we're going to be talking about, we can jump into it right then and there with a voice over IP or even a Zoom call, either through using it through the chat, Magnus, or just jumping into something like Outreach, SalesLoft, etc. How have you utilized that sort of flow in terms of, hey, you're on the site now, we may as well just jump on a call and get this done?
Yeah, I guess before I give away all my cold calling secrets, I think the best way to do it is I'll use it in the opener immediately as a foot in the door. Any way to just, that usually first 10 seconds is the time you need to like peak something, keep them on the line. But especially in chat, when, you know, if I'm coming to talk to a software vendor or something, I don't want to type out my entire company's problem into a chat. And just the ability for me to be like, hey, let's jump on a call then real quick. A lot easier than me having to schedule something, chase them up, and then have that conversation is to do it live. That's obviously my preference, is jump in as quickly as possible to really obviously be on their terms. I think that's one of the more important things, is just do what the buyer wants to do and make it as easy as possible for them to get in front of them quickly, and then obviously actively listen to them. Obviously get their permission before you jump into a Zoom or something like that from chat. I think I've done it a couple times directly from chat where I'm ready to jump into a Zoom and have a conversation there, which is sweet. Once I did have like a duvet on because I forgot I was turning my camera on, which is hilarious. But it's just like that. Like you can be instant. And that's kind of my go-to from chat. And I think, yeah, we'll get into like cold calling specifically, but from chat, that's kind of my favorite play.
Great. Love that. Awesome. So you mentioned like, okay, you'll be able to do it right off the bat. And I think that's a really good thing. We think of that support thing that we were talking about at the beginning, where we were bringing up chat for the first time, and nothing worse than just knowing I'm going to have to wait forever to maybe even speak with a human live. And we're offering that from the get-go, right? So like before you even have to think that you're gonna have to qualify through 10 prompts in order to speak with a human, let's just get it out of the way and let's do it. Like, let's save you some time, less hoops to have to jump through, less friction to have to deal with. So, all right, let's move it to the next play here, and that is the not so cold call. So it's hard. It's a hard time to cold call, is what this is saying. Your buyer could be driving their kid to school, stepping out to grab lunch, which is far too often when we speak to professionals, right? We're always catching these people at lunch. We're always catching them in line at pickup. So when it comes to talking to somebody and like what your opener is, like we don't have enough time even on this webinar to dissect the entire cold call. But what I want to talk about is how do you establish a runway for you to get from hello to pitching, right? What sort of tactics are you using, Magnus, if you catch somebody live in order to not just get permission, but to get interest into that pitch?
Yeah, I think obviously when it comes to the not so cold call, if there was like a full on silver bullet for this would probably be a paid webinar. But like when I think about how I'm going to get someone immediately, it's again that intent. So obviously, hey, usually I'll go, hey Magnus, or not that, hey, it's Magnus over at Drift, catch you at an okay time. And it's really whatever sounds the nicest when you say it. I've worked with so many reps who have every different opener you can think of and it works. But I think obviously calling out that site activity, it's important for something like Drift when that's sort of what we're also selling, for lack of a better term. But I like to say, hey, like, saw you were watching my video, wanted to see if I could help out, or saw you're on site looking at this page. Is that something that's relevant at X company? And that's where preparation comes in hand. So I like to prepare for calls, think about who's the persona I'm calling, what are the general problems they might have, what's the company, how do they make money usually? Just going in a little prepared so that you can have a quick 2-second overview if you can, or just call it out in any way, shape, or form so that it's a little warmer or it's more of a follow-up, and then that gets you that extra runway to then hopefully move forward to pitch or ask questions.
Right. Nothing worse than just like hearing okay, 30 seconds, go. You know what I mean? Like are they actually engaged at that point? So like we're trying to tee up the reason why we're calling rather than, hi, this is, and I've heard people say, hi, this is a cold call. Can I get 30 seconds? Like, I think it's okay. I think that's what good may look like, but we're talking about what great may look like. Any like super crafty or creative things that you've heard in order to capture the attention of somebody who finally picked up a cold call, probably after your 80th or 90th no response?
Ooh, I think if they pick up after a while, obviously that's a great feeling. I'm trying to think of, I like to have fun on calls, because if you're an SDR, calling can really suck sometimes, but if you have fun with it and think of creative approaches, it can get so much better if you just are more relaxed and act like a consultant. I've heard some wild openers like, hey, this is a cold call, feel free to hang up, and then go from there. Or I've heard people pitch from the start. Hey, I know we haven't spoken before, but I was on your website and saw this. Can I grab 30 seconds and just try and tuck some type of value in right away?
Sure.
And I have some blunder calls that I can send people that are just hilarious, but that's a life.
Your point being, like, you want to make sure you're providing value from the start here, and actually before they have to ask why you're calling, right? Or like, where are you from? Or just like immediately putting that leverage back into their hands from a call. It's, I'm here to help, and here's how, without going into the 2-minute spiel, right? I'm here to help, and I truly think there's a problem, and I'm here to help. Right. So
yeah, I think the trusted advisor and consultant, or act like a doctor, ask them questions, diagnose it, I think is super important. It helps with tone and confidence. Your chances are, if you're selling on the phone, you're an expert at what you're selling, and it's okay to act like it, and be confident, not use filler words and possibly maybe okay, like this is your day, this is your kind of specialty, and best. So point out a problem, have that conversation eye to eye, rather than almost like continually begging for time. Once you get attention, you're there, and be confident with it.
Man, I love that, act like a doctor. I mean, from an expertise standpoint, who could you compare more than acting like a doctor? And I think another point within that point is like bedside manner is important. act confident, act helpful, come up. It's how you're saying it just as much as what you're saying. Michael comes to us saying, can you do video message on LinkedIn without drift? Yes, absolutely you can. In fact, like this is something that we are using in order to embed into the LinkedIn message, but like you can use video message. I believe they support, like, how do you go about it right now, Magnus? And if you were to take it out of drift, right, and just do like record a message, is there a spot on LinkedIn that you can just go ahead and attach a file?
Yeah, you can obviously send links. This is obviously in the weeds of LinkedIn, but when you click on any external link you send in LinkedIn, it will ask whoever clicks on it, are you ready to leave LinkedIn? I just keep that in mind. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to send videos, and you can embed links. I'm not sure about actually the thumbnail popping up with other ways of doing it. I'm sure there is a way if you can attach a photo with a kind of link to a video, but
in my experience, you have been able to, which is excellent.
Okay.
So I just say, like, by any means possible, jump out. You know what I'm saying? Like, just jump off the page. And LinkedIn isn't going to bar you for sending videos or anything like that. I've seen voice messages work too. You know, we're starting to do that a little bit over here, which is cool. I see a question here for voice to text technology to capture conversations. You know, especially from the phone. I think that's important. I think, yeah, you could definitely utilize that sort of thing. If you don't mind elaborating in the chat, I'm happy to talk about how we may do that, but it's definitely something that you can do. What is your response to somebody that says they are using your competitor? Magnus, I'll just go right over to you, right? I think it's a great question from Sam here in the chat. What do you say when, hey, like you finally got that at bat and they're like, oh, that's great, we're using competitor XYZ?
I think I have, everyone has their own style with this. I lean into it, like agree with, like, don't just immediately start combating it and just try and smash your competitor. I feel like that's just never the best way to go about it, but rather actually lean in and understand like what drove them to have that competitor in the first place. Why is it on site? What kind of metrics were you looking to accomplish with it? What are you using it for? What do you like about it? What's one thing you maybe would want to change? And then kind of sit and wait and gather nuggets as you can. Obviously, sometimes anyone who cold calls knows that leash tightens very quickly once you ask too many questions.
Yeah.
But see if you can gather enough nuggets or ammunition to then go for a meeting ask. Like, it seems like X competitor, you were looking to do this, and this is kind of your priorities right now, and looks like it may not be fully there yet. Based on X, Y, and Z, I recommend A, B, and C, and just try and get enough ammunition to go for a meeting ask or just have a better understanding. But I would definitely seek to understand the why and how it works and how they like it before you start combating it. And also, I think an important thing here is not to call someone's baby ugly. That's a big no-no. If you say, oh, you have that one stinks. Like, they could have been the one who implemented that a year ago, and then I promise you they're going to hang up immediately. Yeah. But yeah, those are the two things I'd say.
Great. Omar says, have you sent videos via email? And if you're sequencing, when do you send the video? Send the vid? I think, yes, to answer your question, and I just want to be conscious of time, we are absolutely sending via video. When we are sequencing, it's usually the second or third step within our sequence. And the reason being is we want to warm that inbox up a little bit just to make sure we're not getting caught up in spam filters that are detecting any sort of video. What we like to do is say, hey there, notice you engaged with us via XYZ, or from an outbound perspective, hey there, I'm reaching out to you because I believe that we are relevant in this manner to what you had posted. I'm working on a personalized video to be sent over to you. Please keep an eye on that. And then that way, that second or third step is even further personalized with a video and a tailored demonstration under around, say, like 1 to 2 minutes. Someone actually also asked, you know, what does a typical video look like? We like to keep it around 90 seconds. The attention span of how we operate nowadays just doesn't allow for longer than that. You want to get in, you want to show them why you're there, what value you bring. Keep it perfectly imperfect and send it off. So that way you're not, and you want to make sure that thumbnail is something that looks like it's going to catch the attention, whether you're holding up their name on a whiteboard or whatever technology you're using, or even just a friendly wave. Do I think video outreach works better with certain personas more than others? I think it may vary a little bit on your industry versus more the persona. Now, I would say if we're going to look personas wise, there maybe are a few that don't work as well. Maybe those in marketing are a bit more perceptive than those in technology, right? Or finance. But either way, we'll be happy to follow up with all the other questions. I really appreciate the engagement. Some webinars, as you can all see, like it can be a little less engaged, and this one was fun. I know Magnus, you probably had some fun with this as much as I did, but I got to hand things over to Elliot now. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, that was great, guys. So yeah, gonna wrap things up now. Of course, do want to thank everyone for attending. Super engaged event. Love to see it. Big thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Drift. Gonna drop some links in the chat. Feel free to check out Drift. Connected with our speakers, both Alex and Magnus, provided some great content. Recordings and key takeaways from today's event will be available on our site shortly. And don't forget to check out our upcoming events. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys next time.